All right, hi everybody, welcome back. And so in the final bits of this module 5, we are now going to cover annotations and hover functions and how you can make certain information appear in your data visualization by some interactivity with the mouse or the cursor or a key being pressed on your keyboard or things like that. So this was an example that I showed you guys at the start of module 5. And just as a refresher, so this was based on a data set of what flowers bloom in winter. They are organized by the colors of those flowers, and if I hover over each one, it shows this kind of soft spinning flower shape with the name of that flower. So again, this doesn't have to be the same layout or format or functionality in your data viz. Yours can be something completely different, and I encourage it to be something really, really different. But the idea is that I want to show you guys kind of that concept of how you can apply hover functions into your data visualization. This is the example that we're working on so far in module 5. Okay, so I didn't record kind of the last few minutes of me kind of just cleaning everything up and customizing. But basically, all I did so far is one, I changed my background color to this kind of dark blue. No reason, just to make it, start kind of customizing the frame of my visualization. That includes giving it a title. So that's just simple text drawn in, this one here. Just really, really simple, and I'm sure you guys can do that too. If you need refreshers on how text works, you can go back to module 2. And I've also taken out all of the names that were listed at the left side, because we want those to appear when we hover over a circle. So that's practically kind of, that's why it's looking a little different. I didn't record that part, but I'm sure that you guys can customize your visualization the way that you want it, using all the functions that we've already covered. So what we want to do in this video is we want to, when we hover over, the dots, we want two things to appear. We want the text, so the name of the flower to appear, and we want this kind of soft spinning flower graphic to appear as well. I just have my flower graphic here in my P5 web editor sketch. So I created this following a tutorial by Kazuki Umeda. I'll link to his YouTube below in the description and also in this video. Really, really great. And I really enjoy his tutorials, not just for the compelling shapes and everything, but also he explains the mathematical functions behind each shape really, really well. And so I really enjoyed it, and I think highly recommend checking out his channel. So I'm just gonna quickly, I'm gonna quickly annotate all of everything that's on my sketch. That's just to help us later on when we migrate this over to our sketch, so that we know where those customizable points are. But I'm just going to leave this for now. We're going to go back to our sketch. So first thing that I'll do, everything that I've drawn here is still in the setup function, mainly because as we were kind of building on that data drawing aspect, going back and forth, checking stuff in the console, I just didn't want things to loop over each other, and it just makes it a bit hard to track things. But since we are at this stage now, we're all good to go. I'm just going to migrate everything to draw, because your mouse X and mouse Y only works in the draw function. Because draw is the one that loops continuously, that's that's the only place where mouse X and Y can be tracked continuously as well on your canvas. I'm just migrating everything from background all the way to like this is my for loop, and then all the way to the very end of my for loop. I've just kind of copied and pasted, cut and pasted those into the draw function. I'm going to refresh this, make sure nothing's changed, and nothing's changed. Great. How we marry the two, how we marry the mouse functions with your existing visualization, we're going to be using an if-else statement, and we're going to be using a function called distance. I'm going to go to P5 reference, and I'm going to type in dist, which is the command for distance. And what this command is it basically calculates the distance between 2 points. And so in the brackets, so this is how it's written, in the brackets you would need the x and y of point 1 and the x and y of point 2. And so in this scenario, what we want to happen is I want whenever my cursor, whenever my mouse is entering, right, is like kind of overlapping with a circle, I want text to appear, or I want a shape to appear, or anything that you want your hover function to do. And so in other words, I want something to happen only when the distance between my mouse and my shape is 0, right? And so that's what we'll be writing out in our code. And so I'll be using an if-else statement because we want it to happen only when that occurs. And so I'll just type out if distance, and I'm just typing this out. Actually, I'm going to need to type it inside my for loop. So right here. So if distance, and I'll open and close brackets, and I'll say if distance between my mouse X and my mouse Y, and my dots, so like my data dots here, and my data dots are drawn here. So these are each of those circles, and they are X position and Y position. So they're all sets of variables that we've already worked on before. And so I'll put in X pause, Y pause, close, close brackets, close bracket. Actually, if the distance between my mouse and the X and Y position of my circles, I don't normally say equals 0. Like I don't normally say, oh, if the distance is 0, because that can be a bit challenging given that your cursor, like the tip of your cursor will have to be at the very, very center of your circle, which is kind of like, so it's a bit like, it's going to be harder for you to get to that point. So I kind of just want to give it like a radius, kind of like, oh, if it's like within 10 pixels maybe of entering the center of the dot, then we will consider it hovered over. And so I'll say if the distance between my mouse, my data dots are maybe less than 10. Let's start with that. Yeah, close brackets, and I'm opening and closing curly brackets. And in the curly brackets, I will say what I want to happen when the data points are hovered over. So for this example, I'm just going to put in console.log hovered. And so this means it's going to write into my console hovered if my mouse gets to that point. And so I've saved this. I'll refresh this now. I'll open my console. And so nothing happening, but if I overlap, it's going to say hovered like that. And so that's like, as you can see, my code is like at a very fast frame rate. And so because this is in draw, and so it's continuously tracking my mouse, as well as it's storing all of my X positions and Y positions. And so when the two are within 10 pixels of each other, then it's going to give me a hovered. So as you can see, the numbers there are adding up every time I'm hovering over a thing. So it's working. So great. So I'll close this console. Cool. And so now we can do whatever we want with this hover function. So if I say, give me a square that's at the center of everything, so width divided by 2, height divided by 2, 100, and I'll give this like a white fill. Let's see. And so as you can see, it's actually, the fill is actually affecting each of my circles. That aside, imagine if this was kind of like a pop-up and you want something to appear when you are hovering over a certain element. How can you modify that so that, maybe if I hover over this element, something will appear. If I hover over this element, something else will appear. Try and apply, if-else statements and distance and combining all of the things that we've touched on to create what you want. And so this is exciting. So now your visualization is on its way to being kind of more interactive. You can show more annotations and notes and data with this. So what I wanted was to show the flower names. So the flower names, have we pulled that yet? We have not. Yeah, I've got a variable that says flower names. That's what I want. So flower flower names equals table dot get string I, and I will need to refresh myself on what that column name is, just flower here. So these are the words that I want to pull. Cool. I'll close that. It's flower. I'll console.log. We can console.log that if you want to just make sure that it's pulling the data. And yep, it's pulling everything. Great. You can close that. We can continue. So what I can do then is I can simply put text. Maybe I'll give it like a white fill. Text flower names. So draw my flower names as text at, let's say at mouse X, mouse Y. So it's going to appear wherever my mouse is. Yeah, let's try that. And great. And so now we've got, okay, we've got the text appearing, which is good. We need to fix this issue of all the circles turning white though. So, and sometimes this happens, right? And so you might be thinking, why is that happening even though the fill color is all the way at the bottom? I've only got text below that fill line, right? But that's because, again, draw is looping continuously. And if you remember kind of how color and styles work, is that it will apply to everything that is written after it, unless you specify otherwise. And technically, everything is being written after this line, not just the text, but everything, because draw is looping like that. And so I, at least in my personal scenario here, I kind of don't want to mess up with, because that's already, because we've already kind of gone through this kind of like vis colors and color index process in our last video. So what I can do instead is I can just apply a push and pop setting inside this if statement. And I'm applying that now because it's going to be useful for us later on when we introduce that flower that I was showing you guys. So if I save that, if I refresh this, it should no longer affect my circles, which is great. So now I've got the text appearing just the way I want it. That's great. So give it a go. See if you can, you know, fire that hovered trigger successfully in your visualization using the distance between your mouse and any given kind of data point or position of data, you know, or shapes or things like that. And yeah, so give it a go. And in our next video, we're going to discuss how I'm going to be taking kind of the flower or basically any sort of more complex shapes that you have into your visualization, making it into its own function. So it's going to be a little bit like module 3. And then, yeah, seeing how that will interact with your visualization sketch. Cool. I'll see you guys then.